You've talked about schools, but even if you just walk
Very
out...
complicated agenda.
Does it actually mean anything at all?
Okay, this is right and wrong, but he doesn't actually follow it.
We've been in recession for a few years now.
Have any of you been impacted?
Real stories,
We learn from one another.
real issues. Is Islam a threat? And real views. This is Real Talk.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear viewers, welcome to Real Talk Africa. I am your host, Abdul Qadir Ismail Oluwagbemiga. And today's episode is one you simply can't afford to miss. We are tackling a topic that resonates with many, especially young Muslims: relationship and dating, the Islamic view. Did you know that according to recent studies, over 55% of Muslims under 30 say they have turned to social media or dating apps to find a spouse? Yet, many struggle with balancing modern methods of forming relationship with the values of modesty and chastity that are central to Islam. In today's world, navigating relationships between men and women have become more complex than ever. With societal pressures and the normalization of dating, many are left wondering, what is right? What is wrong? And most importantly, what does Islam say about all of this? In this episode, we'll address these questions head-on. How should young Muslims approach relationships? What boundaries should we maintain? And how does Islam guide us in preparing for a meaningful, lasting marriage without getting caught up in the emotional roller coaster that modern dating often brings? Joining me to provide clarity are our esteemed guests in the studio. We have Dr. Nurain Tiamiyu, a lecturer from the University of Lagos, who will help us in understanding the psychology of relationship from both Islamic and societal perspectives. Dr. Nuraini, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We are also joined by missionary Abdul Basit Odusoya, who will offer a deep dive into the spiritual dimension of courtship. Missionary Sahib, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Missionary Sahib will tell us how we can balance faith and feelings. And joining us via live call is Alhaja Akinpelu, a wise voice, who will share her insights on courtship, gender interaction, and boundaries set by the Islamic teachings. I also have with me the audience in the studio. Audience, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for joining us. Together, we'll answer the tough question: is dating ever acceptable in Islam? What does a respectable relationship look like? And how can we build a relationship that not only endures, but also pleases Allah? But before we dive into this discussion, we wanted to hear from you, the public. So we took to the streets and asked some thought-provoking questions. How do young Muslims approach relationships today? What roles does courtship play, and how can we stay true to our faith while navigating the pressures of modern dating? Let us hear what they have to say.
Dating is the act of being in a relationship with the opposite sex. According to Islam, with the intention of marriage, but on the knobs, in the word, it is just relationship between a female and an intimate relationship between a female and a male.
I believe in Islamic it is not allowed to date before marriage, especially getting intimate before marriage is not accepted. But 97% of people nowadays have intimacy before marriage, which is not meant to be.
Dating does not have any correlation in Islam from my own view. But then, is it possible to get married without dating? it's not possible.
Young Muslims can get to know each other through family discussions or supervised member, like an elderly person supervise them, or maybe when they have a discussion about their life goals and so. I feel like the parents should just like guide the child into the relationship and not to like to take it up for themselves. Like now, it's not like you should like enforce their children to get married to the person that they don't want to get married to, or maybe enforce their children to get married to their own choice. They should just like see their children's choice and support them and guide them through it.
As long as the child have a proper upbringing and steady advice and good advice from his or her parents, there is no need for parents to come in when selecting spouse, I think. There's no need for parents.
By encouraging early marriage, creating supportive community, and also the gangs remove it, like your friends.
These days, if you look to your right, you see temptations, you look to your left, you see temptations, even online, trying to browse something. There's these ads they bring these days, nudes. If you are not careful enough, you watch it, which is not meant to be. So it actually takes a very bold mind not to engage in it. That's one. And I stated it earlier that parental upbringing, it takes a huge role in a child's life. If you read Quran more, you have fear of God. The more you read Quran and Hadith, even if you want to make the attempt, there is no how you read Quran once or twice a day or Hadith once or twice a day, and you actually read the meaning behind what you've read, and you want to like do something Islam doesn't permit, that it won't pop out in your mind that this is what you're about to do, these are the consequences.
Welcome back. As we have seen, there are a wide range of views on this topic, but now it's time to bring the conversation home with expert insights. To start off, we'll turn to missionary Abdul Basit Odusoya, who will guide us through the spiritual framework surrounding relationship in Islam. Missionary Sai, in a world where dating has become normalized, what guidance does Islam provide to young Muslims who want to establish meaningful relationship, especially as it relates to modesty and purity?
Thanks for that beautiful question. I think before providing the answer to the question, we need to understand what we know as dating or relationship in the modern context, which refers to the process of coming together of two the opposite sex and engaging in several social interactions to explore their romantic capabilities. That is the definition for dating in the modern context, which often is without like approval, permission, or supervised interaction. And mostly whenever this happens, immoralities, impurities, and several other things that are wrong that Islam does not permit sets in. And coming to the Islamic viewpoint, you realize it does not align. Dating or relationship in the modern context does not align in any way with Islamic teachings and perspective. And furthermore to that, what Islam actually prefers.
What you are trying to tell us is dating is not in tandem with the teaching of Islam.
Exactly.
Okay.
To prefer more so further solution to that or response to that, you realize that what Islam emphasizes is modesty, which is al-haya'u, because there is this popular saying of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu which says, al-haya'u khayru kulluhu. It is an all-round good, being modest, maintaining that level of chastity, no matter how you relate or exchanging interactions with the opposite sex. And at the same time, modesty itself is a component of iman, faith, which every Muslim, especially youth, should exemplify.
So, but before we go deep into the concept of modesty,
Yes.
so if Islam does not permit dating, so what does Islam permit?
What Islam actually permits in replace of dating, as it is in the modern context or Western environment of today, is courtship. And courtship here refers to the coming together or meeting together of the opposite sex, men and women, under supervised condition, such as the parents, community, guardian, and any other truthful individual or trustworthy individuals. And this is to ensure or to cut short sort of immoralities or intimate interactions such as carnal enjoyment and every other things that does not behove a sincere Muslim or a faithful Muslim to be found doing it. Jazakumullah.
So, in short, in Islam, dating is not in tandem with the teaching of Islam. However, as an alternative to dating, courtship is allowed. However, when we talk about courtship, we're talking about a supervised interaction, right, between the opposite sex with the intention of going into marriage. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much, Mr. Isab, for that wonderful insight. Dr. Nureni, in line with the Islamic teachings, what ways, because Missionary Isab has told us that yes, courtship is allowed. However, when we talk about courtship, it has to be a supervised interaction. Now, what are the ways do you think young Muslims can take to know themselves? Because of course, before you can go into a relationship, you want to know the person you are getting into a relationship with. So what are the ways that are allowed, according to Islam, for young Muslims to know themselves before marriage? And how can they ensure that this communication between them remain within the boundaries set by Islam?
Well, thank you for that question. Actually, there are two ways of engaging into a relationship.
Okay.
The first one is classical, and the second one is romantic. That's an area of my PhD. The classical one is Islamic, going through an institution, go through elders. The romantic one is you are going to look for the person yourself. I mean, maybe you are in the same school and you cannot reach the elderly ones. The romantic aspect is when you just find a sister and you like that sister, or a sister finds a brother and he likes the brother. Then in that context, you should not go straight to that sister. Because this time around, you are not basing your relationship based on recommendation this time around. You are the one that actually discovered the person. But you should not go through an elderly person. Either reach to know more about the person. Because through dating, which is not Islamic, you can never know anybody. But you can ask for information about the person. When you now find information about the lady, and you know that this person, you will like the person is within the Jama, you can now send another person to the lady.
So what that means is that taking into consideration the Islamic teachings.
Islamic teaching, you cannot.
The best way to get to know the
other.
opposite sex is to go through recommendation.
That's the first.
Not you saying, I want to know this person myself.
Yes, because of course it's through recommendation. It's a recommendation they give you all the breakdown you need to know.
Okay.
Then to meet the lady, the first thing is you can, if you are very, very bold, you can meet the father of the lady. Okay. Taking permission, I saw your lady, and your daughter, and I like her. If you are very bold, you can meet the father. It means you are sincere. If you cannot do that, you tell your mom to meet the mother of the lady. When your mom meets the mother of the lady, they will tell the lady that so person is interested in you. So she also will now make her own prayer and do istihara. And she will also do her own findings about your own character, your activities, your religious practice, your level, because you have to consider some compatibility modules. Because Allah in the Quran said the pious, for the pious, the non-pious. So the level, there's also level. If you know that you are not a very pious person, don't marry a very pious, you are going to have problem. So you have to consider some compatibility modules. So these are the things
Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much for giving us that insight, sir. Missionary Sahib, looking at the current situation of the world, where the modern contexts have often cloud the judgment of the youth. So how do you think Muslims can balance between the modern context and the Islamic context? Because we must bear in mind that we are youth, and often we get influenced by the societal pressure, things that are going on around us. So how do you think we can balance these two? Good.
Jazakumullah khairan for that question. In the modern context, most of the things that happen actually go against that of Islam. And Muslims found themselves in situations like that. And it will be so challenging to balance the situation. And looking at that, I believe what every Muslim or youth should do is to make use of the faith-based approach into relationship, dating, or courtship. So talking of the faith-based approach, I would only divide it into three. Because the first thing is, if you are not ready, like Dr. Saab said, you should not even venture into any form of relationship. Because you must be ready. Responsibility, that's where it comes in. Then commitment, it comes in. If you are not ready for these two, then there's nothing you have to do with relationship or courtship per se. So talking of the faith-based approach to courtship or to dating, however it may be, the first thing is supervised interactions. That is, whoever is meeting, the boy or let me use it, men and women meeting, it should be under supervised interactions, probably from the guardian parent, community, or any other trustworthy person. Talking of supervised interaction, it can be supervised, most especially people within this JAMA. Like, once you have someone you are talking to, dating, you can as well just notify people, leaders around that environment, like the regional president, JAMA president, missionaries, and any other person that you deem fit to be trustworthy. Then the second thing is chaperoned meetings. No behind-door curtain meeting should occur between when it is left with you and your partner. Meetings, whatever thing you want to discuss, probably about your goals, your future, everything, progress, and how it would lead to marriage or everything good. It should be in an open space, probably at the presence of the family, friends that are reasonable. Let me put it in that way. Reasonable friends and on like that. And this is to ensure immorality not setting in, like we said earlier.
So, you mentioned the first, which is readiness.
The first, which is supervised interactions between the two parties. The second thing is chaperoned meetings. That is meetings that should be done in an open space at the presence of probably the guardian, those who are aware of the relationship between the courtship going on between the two of you. Nothing should be done behind the curtain. Then the third thing is intention to marriage. If there is no intention for that courtship or relationship to lead to marriage, then you have nothing to do with it. So it's better you just abstain.
In summary, three things that must be taken into consideration while going into courtship as proposed by Islam is first, supervised interaction. It must be supervised by someone who would see to the relationship to be sure that, okay, these persons are in relationship, but things they are doing are within the boundaries set by Islam. And the second is to avoid secret meetings. You should meet at open places where people would see you, and in tandem with the saying of Muhammad sallallahu that when two souls are in a secret place, then shaitan will be the third of them. And finally, the last one should be the intention, which is to get married. And I also feel like the intention should even come first to ensure that, the reason why I'm going into this is the intention of getting married.
There should be focus.
Okay.
And that lack of focus would lead to something else. And anything it would be leading to must not even happen out of marriage or before marriage.
Jazakumullah khairan, Missionary Sahib. Dr. Saad, Islam often emphasizes on chastity. Especially, we now live in a world where chastity is not seen as something that is of utmost importance. And some even argue that when you get married to a lady and for years you continue to seek for children and you cannot get offspring. But if you engage in these things before marriage, you already know that, you already know where you are going to, you know what you want to do and things like that. So what do you think we can do as youth, especially in this our society? So what can we do to overcome these challenges and be within the boundaries set by Islam?
Well, my advice goes to the parent first of all.
Okay.
They should do what I call marriage psychology test. Children react to the libido of children. It varies. So you should often ask your children, are you ready to get married? Are you ready to get married? We should assist our children to get married. So we should ask them, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? I always tell my daughter, from 16, I'll be telling them, are you ready to get married? Are you ready to get married? I always ask them, even when the one in the university, I will always ask, are you ready? If you are ready, let me know. So it depends.
So what you are trying to say is, even if the child does not
even if it's in school, if it's not ready, they should assist. So if the pressure is already there, and you are telling the person to go and graduate, go and look for, are you ready? What type of readiness is that? Look for money. So parents should assist their children who are ready, even if they are undergraduate.
So the rich Tanata must start from
They should assist them. From home, they should assist them to get married. So if they are now ready, if there is no pressure on that then you cannot say, okay, until you graduate, look for a job. But some may not want to wait. So if there's no pressure on you as a kudam or as a young person, then it is possible for you to plan and follow the. But if there is pressure already, I had an experience when I was investor of Ife from university. A friend of mine then was in 200 level, wanted to get married. And he wanted to get married to another sister who was in 200 level.
Wow.
He went to his father, I want to get married. The sister also went to his father, I want to get married. Though they are not married. They said, I want to get married. The father said, go and have a girlfriend. He said, no, I can never have a girlfriend. I will never. The parents now said, okay, we'll allow you to get married, but you do family planning. And they allowed them to get married at 200 level. This is about 24 years ago. And when they got married, the sister was a medical student. And when she was in clinic at 400 level, she had the first kid. Wow. And when she was writing the last paper at medical, she had the second kid. So we were finished from Obama University. We had a lot of brothers who got married as students, provided their parents are okay. But though the example I gave, the parents were okay. The parent was a senator in Nigeria. I had another brother who was working. He was earning about to Saudi and was making money as an undergraduate. He got married before he finished, but he could make money. So what I would advise the youth is that if you know you want to get married, start looking for means of livelihood when you are undergraduate, so that you can get married as a student.
So, in short, in fact, the most important remedy to combat the issue of lack of chastity is getting married. I think this is in tandem with the saying of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he said, "Man istata'a minkumul ba'ata falyatazawwaj." So whoever is able to afford a living should get married. And if you know you cannot get married, then you have to fast to bring yourself out of the pressure and be more conservative to the situation surrounding us, especially in these parts of the world. Jazakumullahu khairan, Dr. Saib. We now have with us Al-Hajja Shakirat Akinpelu on live call. Al-Hajja Sahiba, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In the wake of wanting more autonomy, where youths want to have more autonomy in choosing their spouses, what do you think is right? Do you think parents should have more influence on their children and the process of selecting their spouses, or children should be allowed to choose whoever they wish to choose as their spouses? What should parents do considering the teachings of Islam?
When it comes to spouse selection, both parents and the children have different roles to play. It is not enough for parents to choose for their children. Likewise, it is not enough for the children to choose without listening to advice or guidance from their parents. Parents has the roles of guidance, of values clarification, networking, and support to give to their children. When we talk of guidance, parents has the wisdom and they have the experience which they will need to help their child to make a very good decision. Then values clarification. Here, parents ensure that children understand essential values and qualities to look for in a partner. It is not enough to look at the outward look of your spouse or to look at the material things they have. Parents here must ensure that their children understand that the knowledge of your religion is important. The spiritual standard of your partner is important before you choose such a person as your partner. Then networking. Parents can help to choose partners for their children, either from the fold where they worship, from among their friends, from among their acquaintances. They can choose or they can introduce partners to their parents among there. Then the role of support. Parents must be ready to listen, especially when their children are emotionally disturbed. Parents must be able to listen to them because it is not only their choice that matters here, but the support you give to them really matters. Then when we now talk of the children have the final decision here that this person you are pointing to will be okay for them. The first and foremost thing that comes before nikah, especially in Islam, is acceptance by the lady. If she has any reason for not accepting the person you introduce to her, you don't need to bother her. You don't need to stress her. You only need to guide her. So the decision lies with her. If she wants, she continues. If she doesn't, the search continues. Then for the children also, we have to allow them to see, to weigh the pros and cons of staying with a certain future partner. Let them decide themselves. Let them discover themselves. Let them discover the man. Though I'm not saying they should go out of their ways to make this discovery. But as time goes, especially with solid prayers, they will be able to make this discovery I'm talking about. Then communication. Give them the ability to communicate with you. Give them a very good ground to share their thoughts with you. Let them tell you what they feel about somebody you introduce to them. Don't feel bad when they complain. about whoever you introduce to them or whoever somebody close to you introduced to them. If they have any reason for not accepting such person, please don't blame them. It is their life. They are going to live their life there. So it is important you allow them to feel free to communicate with you. And you, in return, you respect their decision. You respect them. Whatever is their fear, let us sit down and analyze it and be sure that such child is okay with your decision. And that is when you can say that you have done well in helping them to select their spouses.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much for that wonderful insights. Now to our audience. You have listened to what our guests have to say about relationship and dating, taking into consideration the view of Islam. Do you have questions or contribution to this discussion?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
As it has been established in Islam that just as missionary Sahib said earlier, that the very first thing to consider when one wants to engage in dating is, are you ready for nikah? Are you ready for marriage? So my question is, then he said that the next thing is supervised courtship, which is supervised interactions. So I'd like to ask, does Islam place a time bound on the number of, the period that courtship should last?
Okay, if Islam places a time bound on the length or period of time you can have a courtship.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or contributions?
Yeah, it said that supervised courtship is allowed in the tenets of Islam. So does that does that allow the concept of betrothal? Betrothal.
Okay, betrothal.
Yeah, for a parent betrothing their child to another party, like in the course of, wanting my child to marry the other
Question
person.
gotten. Do we have any other question or contribution?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Concerning what Dr. Saib said, if in a case whereby the guy is ready, which is the opposite sex, but looking at the age bracket, considering it to that of the female side, do you think that waiting period in between, because if you are looking at the age difference, she might still be very young. So what do you think can be done to make sure that they both abstain from intimate relationship, but the guy already made the intention known to the parents that you want to get married to so person? So what do you think can be done in that aspect for that period of time?
Okay. Jazakumullah khairan. First, we'll turn to Missionary Sahib to answer the question from our audience. The first question from the audience is there a timeline for courtship to take place according to the teaching of Islam?
Jazakumullah khairan for that question. To be direct enough, as a Khalifa to Masih Sadallah Ta'ala bin Nasir Aziz answered that question sometimes ago, that there is no fixed timeline. What we understand about it, in Islam, about courtship is it shouldn't take too long. And talking of the time bound, taking too long or not, what Hazrat Khalifa Masih says is that once you've established the communication between the two parties, like the male and the female, then the parents have been carried along, that is under the supervised interaction of a thing or monitoring. The other thing is, pray over it, istikhara should be done. And it's not that you wait for probably a vision to be shown to you or anything, but once you feel that bliss or comfort that, yes, this thing, you are good to go with it, both from you and from the other end, from the other party, then if you feel every other thing is set, move ahead.
So as a follow-up to that question, so is betrothal, is it acceptable according to the teachings of Islam?
Well, that would be venturing into probably parents forcing their children into like marry so person or not. The autonomy of the child is actually important, because in the process of nikah, as we all know, there is this one of the under hijab wa kubul, the iznu zawja, the permission, consent of the parties. That is, the guy is he not forced into it, then the lady too, acceptance of the proposal from the male.
All right. Going back to your question, we said that the Muslim brother should be ready to get married, readiness. That the person you want to propose to should also be ready to get married. So it should be within the age bracket of marriable age bracket within the country. If you want to marry a girl of 16 in Nigeria, it will be considered as child abuse.
All right, talking of the position of the Jamaat on it, or the Nizam of the Jamaat and Islam generally, things like that under fiqh, it's actually, we need to consider maturity, al-bulugh. Both the male and the female, are they mature? Do they know what marriage itself or relationship that would lead to marriage, what it connotes, what it actually entails? So once that can be defined and there is a positive response to that, then they can move ahead. But really, we would as well consider few ages as well, because you can't expect someone underage to like venture into marriage, whereas would not be able to comprehend enough.
Jazakumullah khairan, Missionary Sahib. Beloved viewers, it is time to listen to the guidance of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, Ayyadahu Allah Ta'ala bi Nasri al-Aziz, who is the worldwide head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. May Allah be his helper on relationship and dating.
You see, if you are irresponsible boy and your behavior is just as irresponsible, which your parents can observe in you, then obviously they will say you are not ready to carry the big responsibility. But if you show responsible behavior, then they will not say this thing, right? The thing is that who will be ready to marry you? Obviously, the girl would like that the husband should be working somewhere, getting some money, so that he can meet the expenses and can run household affairs, all these things, right? If you are ready that you can do it without depending on your parents, then you should get married, right? In the olden days, when boys used to get married at early age, they were not relying on their parents. They would earn their own money and they will run their family affairs on their own, right? If you are ready to do that, now my advice is that you should get married now, today, and even immediately after this meeting. Huh? I don't have any objection, right? So, but if you don't have that, you see, your resources are limited and you are still studying and you are relying on your parents, even on your studies. You take pocket money from your parents, and when you get married, then your wife will also demand some pocket money. You will ask again your father, oh, give me some more money so that I can give to my wife. No, then why? How can you get married? See? But if you are doing some job, yes, so you should get married as early as possible, right? Immediately you complete your studies and you find some job, then you should get married. Okay? then you can ask your parents that, or if there is any special case, then your parents should know that this is the special case. And if you need my recommendation in that particular case for yourself or for your friend, then write to me, then I will personally approach your parents to help you. Okay?
Having listened to the guidance of other Khalifatul Masih, may Allah be his helper, it is now time to have the final thoughts from our guests as regards the topic of discussion. Sheikh Sahib, what will be your final thoughts, sir?
Well, the final thought would be that relationship on the part of the youth should be taken as sacred as possible. Because the moment we fail to take it as a sacred thing, then leading to marriage or nikah would eventually be a problem, or issues can start arising. Because marriage itself is an ibadah. Once you fail from the source, from the beginning, while in relationship, then it is possible an issue or issues might arise or arises.
Dr. Sahib, what will be your final thoughts, sir?
Well, as the missionary has said, marriage is the conclusion of one's life. And the kind of person you get married to will determine the kind of life you will live. So you cannot just get married to anybody just because you just like the person or the person is beautiful. You need to be very prayerful, first of all. You also need to do istihara. You need to consult people. And if you find anybody, you do your findings, try to know more about that person. What does the person like? Try to know the psychology of the person.
Jazakumullah khairan. Say Jazakumullah khairan to our esteemed guest, Dr. Nurain Tiamiyu, Missionary Abdul Basit Udusoya, and Al-Hajja Shakirat Akinpelu. Thank you very much for sharing your valuable insights today. We've had a truly meaningful discussion on how young Muslims can approach relationship while adhering to the boundaries set by Islam. I hope this conversation has brought clarity and inspired reflection on love, courtship, and marriage. To our esteemed audience, we say, Jazakumullahu khairan. To our viewers, we also say, thank you for tuning in and for your continued support. If you have any questions, comments, or observations, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us via africa@mta.tv. It's been a pleasure having you with us on Real Talk Africa. Until next time, I remain your host, Abdul Qadir Ismail Oluwagbemiga. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
La for, hit for them, Alata, la for, hit for them, for Islam stand for peace. La for, hit for them, for Islam stand for peace.